We tend to think of our memory like a video camera, right? Like we're just hitting record on our lives. But the truth is, our brain doesn't work that way at all. Every single time we remember something, we're not just replaying it, we're actually rebuilding it. And the secret ingredient, the blueprint for that entire reconstruction, it's context.
Oh, we've all been there. You walk with purpose from one room to another, maybe into the kitchen, and then you just stop. You stand there completely blank with absolutely no idea what you came for. It's such a common, frustrating little moment. And you probably blame your memory, right? But what if I told you it's not really a memory failure at all?
And that is the key idea we're going to dig into. The room you just left, the thoughts you were having, the things you saw, that was the context for your intention. The moment you walked through that doorway and changed your environment, you lost the very cues your brain was using to hold that thought. Context, it turns out, is the invisible scaffolding holding our memories together.
So, if context is this secret scaffolding for our memory, how exactly is it built? Well, it turns out our brain has some really fascinating blueprints it uses to help us learn, remember, and find our way back to things.
First, let's look at the big picture, what we call contextual memory. This is basically your brain's ability to remember all the rich background details of an event. It's not just knowing a fact, it's remembering how you learned it, the who, what, where, and when. That you learned it in a specific classroom, on a Tuesday, from a particular teacher. It's what makes a memory feel like your own personal experience and not just a random piece of trivia.
Now, what's so cool is how these background details actually help us remember stuff. On the one hand, you've got context-dependent memory. This is all about your external world. The classic study shows that you will literally do better on a test if you take it in the exact same room where you studied. The room itself becomes a trigger. Then, on the other hand, you've got state-dependent memory. This is the internal version. So, if you drink coffee while you study, you'll actually recall that info better if you're also caffeinated when you take the test. Your own internal state is part of the memory's context.
And listen, this isn't just some weird party trick of the brain. It's a fundamental law of memory called the encoding specificity principle. What this really means is that the context isn't just a sticky note you attach to a memory. No, it's woven into the very fabric of the memory itself. For a cue to help you remember, it had to have been there from the very beginning.
Okay, so if our brain is this master weaver, threading context into every memory, who's actually running the show? Well, let's meet the two master architects in charge of building our past. You can think of it like a dynamic duo. First, you have the hippocampus. This is the master binder. It works incredibly fast, taking all the sights, sounds, feelings, the what, where, and when of a moment, and binding them all together into one solid memory. But then you have the medial prefrontal cortex, or MPFC, right up at the front of your brain. This is the control center. It takes that brand new memory and figures out how it fits in with everything you already know, organizing it into these big mental frameworks or schemas.
So the process is like a beautiful little dance. First, the hippocampus just instantly binds the new experience with all its context. Then the MPFC steps in to integrate it, linking it up with your web of existing knowledge. And then, later, when you want to remember something, the MPFC acts like a detective. It uses your current context as a clue to guide the hippocampus right to the specific memory you're looking for. It's this constant, elegant conversation between binding and organizing.
But what happens when this incredibly intricate system starts to break down? Understanding the failure points really reveals just how critical context is for our day-to-day lives and even for our sense of reality. And this table just lays out the devastating consequences so clearly. In Alzheimer's disease, the system starts to decay, especially the ability to process the when of a memory. And that leads to those heartbreaking symptoms, like forgetting things that just happened or asking the same question over and over, because the context of just a moment ago is gone. Now with PTSD, the failure is totally different. It's not that the memory is gone, far from it. It's that the brain fails to use the current safe context to keep that traumatic memory locked in the past where it belongs. This is really the tragic core of PTSD. The traumatic memory has lost its anchor in time. It's become untethered. So it's no longer a memory of a terrible thing that happened. It feels like it's happening right now, bursting into the present. Because all the contextual signals that should be screaming, "You are safe now," are just failing. Now, beyond just keeping our minds healthy, what's another huge job context has in our daily lives? It's helping us tell apart memories that are almost identical. Just think about where you parked your car today. You've parked your car
thousands of times. The only thing that separates today's memory from yesterday's or last week's is the tiny, specific context of this morning. Without that, your brain would just be lost in a sea of similar memories.
Okay, so let's zoom out, because this whole principle of context doesn't just shape our past. It actively guides our present decisions and, this is going to blow your mind, it's one of the central challenges in the world of artificial intelligence today.
So your brain is constantly, automatically making a choice. Do I use what I already know, or do I explore and learn something new? Well, context helps make that call. When you're in a familiar place, your brain switches into a retrieval state, relying on your past experiences. But the moment you enter a new, unfamiliar situation, it flips into an encoding state, priming you to pay attention and learn. It's this brilliant, adaptive switch that guides our behavior without us even noticing. And here is where things get really wild. This fundamental biological problem, how to manage context, is the exact same problem that AI engineers are losing sleep over right now as they build these massive large language models.
The parallels here are just stunning. In your brain, you have working memory. It's kind of like the mental scratch pad that holds whatever you're thinking about right now. Well, in an AI like GPT-4, the direct equivalent is something called a context window. It's the limited amount of text the AI can see at one time. And if your conversation gets too long, information starts to fall out of that window, and the AI literally forgets what you were talking about. So what about long-term memory? Your brain is brilliant at this. It can intelligently pull a relevant memory from years ago into your current train of thought. Well, AI engineers have built a workaround for this too. It's called Retrieval Augmented Generation, or RAG. When you ask a question, the system first does a quick search of a huge database for relevant facts, and then it stuffs those facts into the context window to help generate a smarter answer. It is literally an engineered version of how our brains pull relevant context from the past into the present.
I mean, ultimately, this is the perfect way to see it. Context gives our memories structure. It provides the rules and the relationships that turn the raw, messy data of our lives into a story that actually makes sense. Without it, our experiences would just be a jumble of disconnected words.
So here's the real takeaway. The contexts we create for ourselves, the rooms we work in, the people we're with, even the digital context we build for our AIs, they don't just help us remember the past. They are actively setting the stage for the future decisions we're all about to make. So the question is, what context are you building for yourself right now?